We're feeling it. We are live! Welcome to the Crafty Boys, where a bunch of Canadian guys sit around, drink beer, and talk about crap. That's about it. That's a summary of the show, which is basically like every single talk show ever created, except none of us are Johnny Carson. So,
we're kind of like The View, The View with like whatever, all the women and everything, but we just don't talk about anything of substance.
Well, neither do they, arguably.
Probably, yeah. Oh. I've never actually seen it, so I don't know.
I've seen it a couple of, by seen it, I mean, I might have watched 5 minutes here or there.
Times. I occasionally stop to find out what? And then
mainly over the holidays.
They'll have a guess that it's sort of like, really? They went on The View?
And they get in trouble quite a bit because people call them on all kinds of crap. So,
yeah.
They're about as qualified.
We're the
to talk about everything as we are,
version.
So.
We're the testosterone version of The View.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It used to be called Regis and Kathy. Oh, no, wait. That had Kathy Lee in it. Never mind.
That was a different show.
I can't think of any other show like The View that had.
I think there's other shows.
Wasn't there the Man Show many, many years ago?
Oh, yeah.
But I think that only had like 2 people in it.
Yeah, it had Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, that's right. Jimmy Kimmel. That's right.
Wasn't that more of a Benny Hill type of affair?
Kind of. If Benny Hill was like a variety show, yes.
So let's talk about beer.
Let's do it.
It's a very hard subject. First, we're going to start with Dave, because Dave, of course, is drinking a hardcore beer this evening. Dave, what are you drinking?
Damn straight. This one's called Spitfire.
Spitfire Ginger Ale. Well, at least we're getting him back into the ginger ale. I mean, holy cow.
And
he's getting closer to the territories.
I would just like to point out that
Spit?
Oh, Phillips Soda. What?
It's Phillips Soda, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Alan's probably well aware of this. Shane, maybe not so much. This is
no, I don't think
a newer. We all know Phillips, but this is not this particular one, but their whole Soda Works is a newer addition to what they've been doing. I'm not even sure how many years they've been doing it. Yeah.
If anybody
doesn't know, ginger ale. They got ginger ale. They have a orange cream or orange soda.
Yeah.
Root beer. And one other?
Cola.
The cola, right. And they're all not too bad. And they're all, honest to God, like a different flavor. Like you're not just buying Phillips Coke. You're buying a different cola, so it tastes different. And it's not bad. I quite like this ginger ale. It's good.
It can be a little bit off-putting, actually. I've had the Phillips root beer before, and I am sure that it tastes very authentic. But if you're used to drinking like Barks or A&W or something like that, which is more chemicals than it is actual root beer,
it'll freak you out.
It'll freak you out because it's a lot different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but. So it was a little bit.
It sounds dangerous almost.
Well, no, it's just you're expecting. So if you're buying a root beer, you expect it to taste like A&W root beer or Barks or something that you're more familiar with.
Right.
But it tastes nothing like that. Nothing like that. No. So it probably has a more authentic flavor to it. But it was my first time ever having it, and I was like, What is this? I couldn't identify. I wouldn't have been able to identify it as root beer if it didn't say root beer on the actual bottle.
And you know what? That's totally fair. I think I've only had it, 2, maybe 3 times, and I'm kind of getting used to it, enjoying it. But I think even off my first go off the ginger ale, I was like, you know what? They did a good job on this. It's got a bit of a kick to it too.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that this is another step in their whole process, because I used to only see it single bottles in like thrifties.
Yeah.
And now my lady was just out today and I said, I wanted, something like this or a root beer. And she said all she could find at the shop she was in was a 4-pack of cans.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah. So they're starting to do that now, which is cool.
Cool.
Maybe it's their secret plan for world domination.
It could be.
Moving slowly into the world of pop.
It makes sense.
Right? Totally.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my thing.
And
That's my thing.
okay.
It's good.
That's all I got to say
good.
about
I mean,
that.
If you're a full-on non-beer person, you're just like, whatever, that stuff is disgusting shit, I would never touch it. Well, do this. It's a pop. It's sweet. I will say though,
That's
it is
absolutely disgusting. I can't believe we actually associate with any of you.
This though, I will warn people. A little bit like Alan's comments about the root beer. This is not your grandmother's ginger ale. This is not Canada Dry, which is I don't even like that shit. Oh man, Canada Dry is like an embarrassment to the country. This is the real deal. It's actually got honest to God ginger in it, and you can taste it, and it's really cool. So there you go. My pimpin' for the Phillips tonight.
Nice. Locke, what are you drinking this evening?
Okay, so
I went out and murdered my neighbor, took their blood and brewed it.
exactly that kind of moral ambiguity, right? Dave, here's Dave. He's drinking a craft product, but it's not beer. Me, I'm drinking beer, but it's not a craft product, and for me that's unusual. And I'd like to explain why. Over the last little while, you've heard me complain a little bit that craft brewing has sort of found itself repeating itself again, kind of the way it was doing back in the days of the everything is hop dominance mush. That it's just pile on as many hops as you can to cover the fact that you don't know how to make beer, and then recently it's been everything has to taste like fruit punch, and beer is getting sweeter. Yeah. Sweeter and sweeter and hazier and hazier and hazier. And like at some point, it's sort of like, I kind of miss some variety in the product that was out there. And so I started casting around for what's missing in the spectrum out there. What am I not able to get from a craft brewery right now that I'd really like to see somebody do? And I stumbled upon this. This is from Japan's, not craft brewery, largest brewery. They are a $1 trillion company. So they're not small. There's nothing redeemably niche about them. But this is an amazing product. This is Asahi Super Dry.
I've seen that around. I don't
think
I've ever had it though.
If you want to find out what a really refreshing, cool lager type beer ought to taste like, if it's not a Czech Pilsner, it should taste like this. It's refreshing. It lives up to Super Dry, which is to say that it's not sweet, but it does have a satisfying sort of malty back end to it. Crisp like mineral water. Clear like mineral water for that matter. I'd really like to see some craft player out there try to take this on and see what they can do with it. Because right now,
I'm down with that. I'm totally down with that. I've enjoyed the odd Japanese brew at like a sushi place or something.
Yeah. Now, so my question block, is that actually brewed in Japan and imported, or is this one of those things where it's like they've just taken something that's brewed in North America and relabeled it with a Japanese label?
That is an interesting question. What I can tell you is the recipe results in something that tastes sufficiently different that you wouldn't confuse it with, you know, a Coors Molson type of product. 5.2% alcohol per volume, so it's not light beer. So let me see. Ingredients: water, barley malt, cornstarch, maize, hops, rice. Contains barley. Okay, I'm glad you let us in on that. And I'm not seeing anything that confirms or denies.
Okay.
What? I'm got a best before. Hold on. That's in French. It doesn't say where this was tinned. I'm a little disappointed in that. I'd like to know. I think, you know, given the size of the company, it's sort of hard to tell whether this is an import or whether this was brewed in North America. But what I can tell you is that as a type of beer on the product spectrum of beer, this is something that some kind of craft brewer ought to try to do, because everybody's done hazy, everybody's done hop dominance.
Alan, what are you drinking?
All right, so you guys know how much I love IPAs, right?
Yes.
I would say that IPA is probably, most people would think, is my favorite beer, but it's not. My favorite beer, and I found this and I had to get it, is actually one that's kind of hard to come by sometimes. It's a Scotch ale. A Scotch ale.
So yeah, I like some Scotch ales, yeah.
From Souk Oceanside Brewing, which we've been covering a lot recently. They just came out with their Fight in the Dog Scotch Ale, which clocks in at a 7% alcohol by volume. Really dark in color. Almost no IBUs. And it's got a heavy amount of roasted malts in it. This is what it looks like when you pour it in the glass. Fairly, I mean, not much of a head, but you got fairly decent lacing off of it. It's kind of like it's lingering around. Smell is very good. Not the best Scotch ale that I've ever had. I would rank Kilt Lifter from Pike Brewing in Seattle better than this one. Also, the Riley Scotch Ale, which I actually don't think exists anymore, from Swans, was a really good beer as well. But this one is still pretty good for what it is. And I'm enjoying this thoroughly, and I recommend going out and picking it up. And if you can try a Kilt Lifter from Pike,
yep,
I would definitely recommend that. I used to be able to get it here locally, but I haven't seen it around anything from Pike up here in years. I used to get it actually, Locke, at the that liquor store that was at Admiral's Walk, the 4 Mile.
Oh yeah, yep,
yeah. Whatever.
All right,
Shane.
And finally tonight, I'm drinking Night Watch Coffee Lager.
Perfect.
It is from Lighthouse Brewing. It's been on the show before, but I don't care.
It's a good one.
I want to drink it. Oh, wow. This is coffee, if I ever could smell coffee. But I don't think that the Peanut Gallery should have any, because they've been mean today.
So Shane, I think we had that one for the very first time at the Christmas craft beer show a couple of years ago.
I think you're right.
Before all
Peanut
this
Gallery
stuff, obviously.
Hand over my beer, says the Peanut Gallery.
And I think this is the only coffee beer that you and I have ever had that we kind of ranked as high or even higher than Bean Me Up from Fuggles and Warlock.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this one is, it says, locally produced cold brew coffee and crisp, clean craft lager are blended seamlessly to create a one-of-a-kind beer. Subtle tones of hazelnut, cinnamon, and chocolate make Night Watch Coffee Lager the perfect beer, day or night, except for wimps like Kelch. Oh, who knew?
Oh. A shout out to Dave.
A shout out to, and then of course, being Easter, chocolate has been delivered to the thing. So again, it is a lager. It's not a stout or anything, but it hopefully will beam. It totally is beaming out. There you go. That's the that's the color, and
that's what
it smells like coffee.
That's what happens when coffee and beer and antimatter all come together.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go. That's what it looks like.
By the way, it's spinning around. The muons are getting a little crazy there.
Yep, that's
So
got the nice
is
balance.
it everything that you remember it, Shane?
It is everything, but you're right. The only difference that the only real difference between this and Beam Me Up is that the Beam Me Up is a stout, I believe. Tell him to go to bed.
No, I'm paying attention to my dog, trying to get into the recycling bin.
Yeah, tell your dog to go to bed. Stop messing with the recycling.
That's right. So, COVID talk. What's going on? Our province is currently in another lockdown, which is really,
No, we're not.
Well, okay, it's a semi lockdown.
Oh.
But anyway, but it's not as bad as what's happening in Ontario, where Ontario is having a stay-at-home order at some point, I believe, if not already. So, is it started already?
I think it drops tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's going to be very interesting for Ontario. Numbers are up. We're above the second wave now, so we're all going to die, and it's all Alan's fault because he didn't solve the cure by the time the year expired for the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah,
it's
all my fault. Sorry.
It's sort of a bit like. It's a bit like driftwood, which is just as soon as you think you've figured out what the best driftwood product on the market is, they'll release another product, and so that's what's happened. Is that you had COVID-19, and now you got COVID-19 with a twist.
Yes.
Yeah.
It went out and got a wax job.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But everyone is all well here. No one is in ICU in your families, no?
No, happily no.
Because it won't really matter because we're all living in a simulation. So,
yes, apparently.
So the idea then is that we just got to get somebody to fix up the frickin' code and get this virus out.
That's right. So, Alan, why are we living in a simulation? What exactly got you onto this?
I read this article in the Scientific American, and apparently there are signs that life as we know it is a computer simulation, and we're living inside of it. The reason for this being is that we have computer simulations right now. We run computer simulations for all kinds of simulate all kinds of things in our society. And one thing that these simulations always have is they have limitations. And those limitations are because of processing power of our computers, right? So there's a limit to how much data they can process per second, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And these things are universal across the entire simulation. So what they've gone and done is they've said, okay, well, can we find anything about our lives, about the universe right now, where there's a similar kind of limitation put on it that's universal across everything, that we have no explanation for? And that would be the speed of light. Speed of light is the fastest speed with which a particle can travel. It is a limit. We can't explain it. And it is absolutely universal across everything. It is the fastest speed that you can go. And based on that, that could be a sign that we are in a simulation.
Well, you know what? I know
that's an oversimplification, by the way. But
that this beer doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth and drink it down, the Matrix is telling me that telling my brain, that it's hoppy, ale-like, delicious. But you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Take the red pill.
Here's what I see going on here. This is science stumbling into what's more properly philosophy.
Yes.
When you start making ontological claims like the whole world is a simulation, or the whole world is made of cheese, or the whole world is made of chocolate, or the whole world is good, or the whole world is bad, or the whole world is one thing, or the whole world's made of light, the whole world's made of matter, the whole world's made of spirit. The problem is once you've entered that thing where the whole world is, you haven't really narrowed the field enough that's a useful thing to know. If you accept empiricism and the idea that we pick up stuff that's incorrigible, that's going on without our making it go on ourselves, and that can be difficult if you're crazy. I've tried it. We've all been a little there once in a while, haven't we? But the point is, when you let go of the idea that, okay, I'm omnipotent and it's just the whole world is me, if you let go of that ontological claim and you look at the idea that, well, there's stuff that happens without my making it happen, so evidently there's something else, right? That whatever else it is, our puny little monkey brains aren't really evolved to deal with fine distinctions as to what goes on the other side of that fence. What we're good at doing is drinking beer and making more of ourselves by sleeping with women and men if you're a woman, procreating, all that. And
I'll be back.
Having said a lot of things, we've confused ourselves into thinking that, well, it's our business to know whether or not we live in a simulation. Frankly, whether it is or isn't a simulation, whatever it is, we're stuck with it.
True.
That's true. I mean, of course, in the film The Matrix, where Neo is ejected from the computer battery farm, essentially. I don't know if there's the good question of that. I don't think has ever been mentioned or asked in that set of films. Although apparently they just finished filming a fourth one. The question is, sure, okay, I'm living in a simulation, and I could request to be booted from it so that I can live in the real world, as it were. But the real world kind of sucked in that film. It was a desolate wasteland of hells. It's like basically Earth was a hellscape. Would we want to actually leave? Like, would you actually? Okay, if we were given the choice that today somebody said, yes, it is a simulation, press this button or take the pill, whatever you want to call it, to get out, would you actually do it?
Yeah, here's the thing. We do live in a simulation already, and it's necessary in order for our senses to work. In order for our senses to have any use whatsoever, we need to presume that there's more matter to the table in front of us than there is space. And we know on the basis of, the sort of the hard physics end of particle theory, that's not true. There's actually more space there, equals mc squared, than there is matter. We talk about the speed of light. Okay, yeah, the speed of light is the fastest thing that we can think of, except for the thing that's already there before the light gets there, which arguably is faster, and that's the darkness. The void is faster than the light. The light travels through it, meaning the void beat it to the punch.
No, I don't think it works that way. But
well, so you could call a void a nothingness, and so say that, well, okay, but it didn't really go anywhere, so it didn't. But this is a tautological argument. When you start, at some point you get a singularity, and then whether those singularities go in cycles like Big Bang theory suggests, or whether there's a nuance that our simple monkey brains don't really get there, and maybe never will, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like V'ger in Star Trek, having gone off into the universe and stumbled across a robotic race of creatures who decided that, this thing needs to find information. So they built it, our little space probe, a large vessel to travel around and collect data, because that's what it was programmed to do. And then it got to the point where it became self-aware, and then it was like, okay, what's next? I know everything. I need to find God. And then, of course, it goes to Earth thinking that's where God is, because that's where it's been told to send all its information. So
it shows you how much it knew.
Yeah, well, exactly. God, was it stupid. But then, it gets there, and it basically has to evolve into a higher, place of being. So
right.
Is that our goal? Is that what's going to happen? Like, I'm talking like a long time in the future, and half of us we're more machine now than human. But are we going to be, deciding, okay, well, I've been across as much as I can of this galaxy, then I could go to the next galaxy, but whatever, who cares? What am I going to find there that's new? The rules are the same. Maybe it's time to go to some sort of different, enter the multiverse or something.
What if, and expanding on the simulation theory that we're talking about, there is another theory out there that we have already lived our lives. That our lives have already played out. We've experienced, we have lived, we have died, possibly several times, like many times over. We've all been sucked into a black hole, and we are merely replaying images of ourselves from inside the black hole.
Here, Alan, you remember what I was saying about the singularity?
Yeah.
Think for a moment about this. If that were so, then time is an illusion.
Yes.
And in which case, we were always doing both, if you see what I mean. Here's one to really mess with your head.
Okay.
One of the things that allows us to have this conversation, and one of the things that allows us to look around the room and appreciate the dazzling display of whatever this is sentience, is mind. Suppose, different from what a lot of people, imagine, that mind is something either that's an artifact of the singularity. What if mind is the fundamental, and that it's all mind anyway? Then the simulation is a simulation of what? Because it's all just mind. What does simulation mean if the fundamental of the singularity is not, I'm not talking about the linguistic acrobatics that we do in order to communicate this stuff. I mean just that buzz that allows it all to go on. What if mind is the fundamental?
Well, I mean that entirely could be the case
We're
because
talking ontologically here, and this is probably not science. This is philosophy.
But here's the thing. From that perspective, and marrying it with what Alan was saying about how, we've already reached the end of this universe's existence, and we've all been sucked into black holes, and we know that time, the closer it is to a gravity well, is a heck of a lot faster, or sorry, wait a minute, slower than anything else. So, like for example, people that live on the top of a mountain versus people that live at sea level are actually moving and experiencing the world at different paces. Very minutely, but enough that we can actually tell, right? So, so basically, I guess what I'm saying is that I want to build a very large, heavily lit spacecraft, construct a robot named Maximilian, and fly that motherfucker into a black hole, because in theory you'd never die. You would eventually die, but as time dilates and becomes much, 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 much longer, it's like you'd probably never realize that you were being torn apart by a black hole. And I like the whole idea of it looping around, though. Like skittering around the edge of a black hole.
I like the idea that my own megalomania is actually just me expressing myself as the universe in its constituent state.
Well, here's what I imagine is, and this is just my own theory. It's like, what happens, like, the moment you die, the very next moment you are being born again to your own mother back for me in 1972. And I will live my life exactly the same as I did this life, making all the same choices and everything, and having absolutely no memory of already living that life. I'll meet Shane again, I'll meet Locke again, and unfortunately I'll meet Dave too.
As soon as you meet Dave, that's when you know that quantum theory exists.
Well, I mean,
it just goes for shit.
Wouldn't that be interesting if you're living your life in an infinite loop?
Well,
I mean, it's that whole
one of the outcomes of that. If you are, then the next time you lose your temper over feeling bad over something that you fucked up or something that somebody else fucked up, you know how useful that waste of energy is, don't you?
Well, it's like the whole hidden variables of quantum physics, where, I mean, I am so not a quantum physicist in any way, but the idea that we are able to have free will, kinda, but not, because all of the variables of our existence about decisions we make and where we end up and all kinds of things are already predetermined, because the way that matter works, it can't, it only can do what it's allowed to do based on the rules of the universe. And so all I'm saying is that Alan is correct, that we would be born again and live exactly and do exactly the same thing over and over and over again.
I would suggest that fractal geometry shows us that's at least partly right. But it's not that there's no free will, it's that will is expensive.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to...
They repeat, but just a little bit of a budge one way or another, and the pattern will evolve.
Exactly.
There's
Dave,
no free will. There's just, pricey will.
Pricey will. Dave, I am very curious, considering the conversations you and I have had about this kind of stuff. What is your thinking? Like, are you on board with the Matrix, or you have a different thought?
Well, I'm totally on board with Matrix. I don't know about the whole, the scientific, we're in a simulation stuff. However, if you go back, I'm not even sure how much it is, at least 2,000 years, maybe 5, I don't know. In Hindu thought, you're going to find parallels to what we're talking about. It's just kind of, as Locke was pointing out, we're entering a philosophy, spirit, all the woo-woo stuff that scientists get their titties all tied up about because they can't handle anything outside of their tiny little box that they have constructed.
You're not giving scientists enough credit. Like Feynman was very woo-woo.
Well, okay, absolutely fair. I would say the top flight thinkers like Feynman, and honestly, I've not read anything by him. I need to, because I think he'd be pretty cool. But guys like him, and then you listen to some of what Einstein said. So you're making a totally fair point. Einstein, I think, was traveling in some of the same directions as well, in his own way. He wasn't claiming that there was only one way of understanding life, but hey, a lot of what you guys have said already, it tracks to some of the oldest thought that has been written down in Hinduism, in Buddhist thought too. They've got stuff that talks about this kind of what is this shit? What are we talking about here in the end? Who was it that made that comment? In the end, it's all mind. I think that was you, Locke. That's Eastern thought. In the end, it's all mind. And in fact, there's another guy that I read who comes out of Jewish mystical thought, and one of his favorite phrases, from what I can tell, is "It's all in your head. You just don't know how big your head is." Chew on that one for a bit. It's and then Taoist thinking, another flavor, if you will, of Eastern thought. It's all of these traditions have stuff that very much speaks to our experience as human beings in these these meat suits, and what is really going on with our lives, and our impact we can have on the world, or impact that we don't have on the world, because it's that free will stuff that you were mentioning, Alan. Like, where does that fit in? Where does that fit into everything?
Sorry, a quote just popped into my head from Jay in the movie Dogma.
Yeah.
What the fuck is all this shit? Who the fuck are you, lady? Why did you fucking hug my head? And then it's like, I believe I believe that you're all the answers will be in her eyes, looking into God's eyes or whatever. And he goes, "What the fuck does that mean? Has everybody gone fucking nuts?" It's just like, it boils it all down into a very simplistic kind of thing that at the end of the day kind of means everything.
Probably so, yeah.
Look into God's eyes for the answers. What the fuck does that mean? Who the hell are you? Oh God. I don't know. Something one of you guys said just that popped into my mind. Oh God. Oh, yeah.
So earlier this evening, I did make glib reference to the muons. Do you know about the muons?
Tell us about the muons.
So, we think, or at least it's been broadcast all over the news, that there is evidence, that is to say empirical evidence, on the basis of watching particles do their thing, of a fifth, that is to say it's not gravity or any of the other ones that we've already identified, a fifth force of nature that is fundamental to the way the universe works. I suspect there's probably a lot more to it than that, but at least this one came from an actual experiment that actually, found something that it wasn't already presupposing, like the Higgs boson. I am a little. My bitch about the Higgs boson is that was one that people had been looking for a good deal of time before they found it. That's not the way science is supposed to work. You're supposed to start with, we don't know what's out there, and we'll wait until we see it. Yeah,
It's true.
if you're trying to prove that something exists and then you prove it, okay, neat trick, but that's not really science, is it? At least not empirical science the way it's.
Well, I see. I don't know if I agree with that entirely. The whole reason why we know that dark matter exists, or why we have a theory for dark matter, is just because we know about gravitational relationships.
Yeah, and we know that we've got an equation that doesn't balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same deal with when we find planets in the solar system, like obviously kind of dated now, but way back when, before we had the powerful telescopes.
I'm happy with hypotheses and theories.
Yeah. Okay.
But call them hypotheses and theories. Don't jump the gun and go looking to prove something so that you can nail it in place, so you can go, now we can organize the rest of the world around the thing that we wanted to be so that we wouldn't have to change our model, because it could be that there are other elements of the model that where there's some slippage happening, right?
You don't want slippage.
True.
Well, you don't want
can't have slippage.
You don't want
If you do,
slippage. Have
you're
slippage.
There's some contexts where a little slippage can be mighty helpful.
Get some traction on that. No slippage.
Oh no, I'm thinking of that Bon Jovi album, "Slippery When Wet," but never mind. We'll move past that.
Now, if you guys if you were given the power, if somebody walked up to you and said, "Here's the solution to having free will," would you live your life? Now, let's of course assume we all know when we're going to die and how we die and when. Would you change anything? What would you do differently? If anything, maybe you just my life has been the best thing ever. I would like to do it exactly the same way.
So sorry, if we were given our
if you get to the end of your life and you're about to die and God shows up and says, "Hey, by the way, you're going to go back and be born again."
So, are you asking us if we have regrets?
No, everyone's going to have regrets at the end of their life. I forgot to take the mail out in 1978.
No. I'll never get there.
You're never going to die?
No, it's too far away. Like, I'm going to keep fucking working to get there, and it'll never happen.
Okay, I can see that.
I intend to download my consciousness into a computer system and continue.
What kind of computer system?
Really? I download my consciousness into other human beings.
Oh, that would be cool.
That would be cool. I think we are going to make our own afterlife. We don't know that heaven necessarily exists. And what I think we're going to do is somebody at some point is going to invent an e-heaven or an I-heaven or whatever you want to call it. And before you die, you will download your consciousness into this thing, and all of your relatives and everything will be in there, and you'll live forever after your body is gone in this computer system, kind of like, Grand Theft Auto or whatever, where you're going to be walking around in there.
But Alan, will you notice?
I don't know.
You didn't notice.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we're all dead, and we're in Grand Theft Auto right now.
Well, there is an episode.
That at least explains American politics.
True.
It's just
there is an episode of the show Black Mirror
Yes.
where at the very end of your life you're able to download your consciousness into basically a virtual simulation, and you could just keep on living. But I don't know. Would you guys do that?
I would if everybody else is doing it.
Well, because did you see what William Shatner has been doing in the last year?
I did read a little bit about it.
Where he has been, essentially it's a series of questions that they ask you about life, the universe, and everything, and what kind of advice would you give? And the whole idea is that after Shatner dies, because Shatner just turned 90, that you would still be able to go and interact with him based on, you could ask him questions and he would be able to find an answer. The AI would, find the answer for you. Would you actually do that? Like, if you were given, I guess to rephrase my question of earlier, would you, given the chance to live on, either on your deathbed or tomorrow, would you like to download your brain into a robotic dick or something? Would you, come to think of it, that's not a bad idea. Little spider legs on it. But anyway, would you, that'd be so creepy. But essentially, given the choice of living forever, like whether you become a vampire, insert yourself into the Matrix or whatever, would you do it? Would you want to live potentially until the end of time?
Sure, why not?
Potentially, assuming you never die.
Why do people write books?
That's a good point.
I'd suggest that this is that particular feature of human engagement has been going on as old as the cave paintings in southern France.
Yeah. I struggle for that kind of question because I don't think I would. I don't think I'd want to live forever. If I could live forever and be stuck in a library for the rest of my existence in the universe, then maybe, because I get to read or whatever. But I don't know. I'm of that opinion that I think that there's a moment in somebody's life where that it's time to go. Because if you've seen the television program The Good Place, they deal with that question. You're in heaven, you're living your best whatever, you're having monkey sex all the time, you're eating whatever you want, and no fear of getting heart disease or whatever. But they do deal with that thing where it's like, well, you've been living here for the last 600 million years. Do you want to go to the movies? And a lot of the characters said, you know what? Now it's time to go. And they walk into this mirror thing that blasts their atoms into dust, and they're done and done. But I don't know. It's a very interesting question. I'm curious if people would do it.
I don't think it works like that. Time to go, yes. Yeah, obviously. I agree that sometimes it's time to go. Where that arrives depends on your lifestyle a little bit. When it's time to go, depends on whether you're being tortured, depends on whether you have anything to look forward to. It depends on what kind of outcome you want. Remember when I said there's no such thing as free will, it's just expensive will? This is the expensive part. And sometimes it means that it's over and that's it, and there's nothing else. And sometimes it means that you change in a way that means that whatever was there before isn't the same thing anymore. And so there's no more you, but it's now whatever that thing that used to be you, that we used to assume had the solidity of a table, which we agree on the basis of particle physics is mostly air, not even air, less than air, vacuum. nothingness, space. When the change happens, one of the fundamentals that we seem to still agree on is that matter is neither created nor destroyed. So whatever happened, it didn't go away. It changed.
All I'm saying is if they can download my consciousness into like a robotic being, like say Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and they make me the captain of my own starship, man, I'm all over that.
That I could get behind, being a Data-like being running
Who's
around.
fully functional.
Well, of course, you'd have to. I have multiple techniques. But I don't know. It's a very interesting question of whether or not, like, is your consciousness transferred into another body still you?
Yes.
Is your consciousness, when it sits in the same body and the molecules change such that the ones that were there 7 years ago aren't there anymore, still you?
That is kind of what I was hoping you would say. Because, yeah, after a period of time, our cells replace themselves. They do all the things they're supposed to do. They die off. They replace themselves. And is that really you? I don't know. Dave, you've been terribly silent. Please tell us. Give us the wisdom to answer all of the questions this evening.
Dave should actually be speaking up. You may not know this. Dave is actually a credentialed hypnotherapist who does mentalism stuff all the time. So please, Dave.
Yeah, baby. Oh man, no, I'm just.
That's the title of your first book, Dave.
Oh, yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
But I like
Baby, you got the answer.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, done.
In 2025, the Hey Baby movement took the world by storm.
Oh yeah.
I see Dave on a mountaintop in like robes and stuff.
What I tell you, we're the
Hey
new
baby, welcome baby. All hail baby, baby.
Well, okay. Where Jesus, there's so much you guys are talking about. It's all so amazing. So would I do it? Back to your question. Would I want to be doing that kind of thing? Sitting here right now at the stage I'm at, my answer is yes. Would I say the same thing 5-10 years? I don't know. But right now, yes, because I feel like, oh my God, I have a billion other things that I want to do with my life. And I haven't gotten much of it done at all at this point. And I don't have a whole shitload of time left in this particular body. So, if I could grab another one off the shelf, sweet. I would totally be down with it. But you guys are talking about that we actually recently saw somebody saying that we, because the old phrase used to be, what was it, like every 7 years, our bodies are completely and entirely regenerated. Like every single cell in your body is
rough measure, maybe
new. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't. How are you going to measure that, really? But more recently, I read somebody saying like months is the time. So I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a scientist by any stretch. So I don't know who's, maybe it's a nice little medium there, like 2.5 years. But whatever. But the thing I found kind of interesting that plopped into my head, being the kind of thinker that I am, is that idea that you popped out there, Locke, about, well, given that, every single cell of you is different at some point, and multiple points throughout your life, your body is completely regenerating multiple times throughout your life. Therefore, are you the same person? And if from a Buddhist perspective, there is no person, where constructs, and if you boil everything down, then the idea itself of ourselves is an illusion, which is just
Well,
I mean,
it's
I
like
can't
that.
wrap my brain around it, but that's
Well, there's that.
one of their fundamental concepts, is that there is no self.
Well, I mean that's the argument being made by that science fiction show Altered Carbon, where everybody
I was gonna mention
is
that's a great show, by the way,
basically.
if you've not seen it.
It's a very interesting show. If there basically you have this disc inserted into your body, into your spinal column, that basically downloads your brain. So all the time it's saving your brain. So as you're living your life, it's saving your new memories and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to, well said, Alan. So anyway, so if you die, or if you need a new body, you have the ability and technology to basically 3D print a new body, and it downloads that what's in that device into the device of the new body, and then you wake up and you're like, oh great, awesome, so I got a new body, and you continue on. It gets really twisted because the whole premise of the show is that people are putting themselves into bodies that aren't necessarily theirs. Not to mention downloading your dead relatives into a body that shows up for holidays. So basically it's like, yeah, grandma died 50 years ago, but she'll be here in an hour, so we better get the decorations up, and is dinner ready, and like that kind of stuff. And then, your grandmother walks in whatever body was available. That's the big thing, is that you don't get a choice sometimes.
As a proxy way of exploring psychological behavior, I mean, I think that's really potent. And I also saw that in that German show, Dark. It's a bit of a time.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Better if you watch it with subtitles, because the American voiceovers are appalling. Voiceover actors, it's sort of like, well, I have no idea what the motivation of this character is, but I'll say those words in that order. Anyway, point being, if you live your life according to the expectation of playing a certain role, it doesn't preclude that you can change that role at a later date. You might have to. Maybe that role is only in reference to a parent or a child or a loved one or it's a job maybe, and then something changes, and then you need to redefine. That psychological element of all of these things. We have to do this. We have to deal with these kind of lives and deaths within lives. On a personal level, very, very often. And then there's sort of your. So Dave's been bringing up some Eastern thought. So Krishna was faced with a grave battle ahead of him, and he was trying to figure out what to do in the face of this. What's the right thing? I mean, fighting, it's bloody, it's violent, it's bad. What do I do? And so he tries to meditate on what the way forward is. And in the end, the answer is, if you assume that you are the one true God and live your life that way, then it doesn't really matter what happens next, because it's all just a big cycle anyway.
Yeah, man.
Come on, Alan, do the quote now.
We're the aliens. We're the savages, man.
Let's all just get high.
What did I tell you guys? We are the testosterone version of The View.
Yeah, that's where we started.
I don't know. Is this where they go? I've never watched the. watched
Yeah, well, I don't know.
know.
I've never properly watched it myself. One imagines there's probably a bit more crying and hand holding involved.
A little bit more man hating. Okay.
Well, hey, Ozzy Osbourne's wife is on that show, and she doesn't take crap from anybody. So
I thought she was on a different show.
No, I think she's on The View.
She's on plenty of shows, and
She used to be. She used to have her own show, but I don't think that exists anymore.
No.
All right.
Hey,
I
gotta be
fear
here to
Sharon
keep
Osbourne.
Ozzy alive this long, I think. So,
That's
gotta
true.
give her some props for that at least.
They kept him alive.
I'm sure there's some people out there that complain about her being the one that busted up Sabbath. Who knows?
Well, all right. So as a practical matter, good home-fashioned, real-world philosophy. God loves us, and fear is proof of that. Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out of beer.
Those are good. Those are good closing remarks.
Yeah,
I agree because
we are.
we've been going for an hour. So
Franklin, trust the Queen, fear Sharon Osbourne.
King and Country. And Sharon Osbourne. All right, boys and girls, thank you all for watching. I know that some of you have been out there, and no one was chatting to us today, though, but that's okay. You can try again next week. And as always, don't forget, follow us on all the social media channels. Come and hang out next week, because we're around. But, Alan, take us out.